Well, hello and welcome to Garden Wise. My name is Marty Morgan. I work for the Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service and serve as the Wise County Ag Agent. And today we're going to be talking about disease and pest control in the garden. This is an age-old problem and it's never going away. So each year we've got to battle certain diseases and pest controls depending on the weather. So hopefully this will help you in your battle against those uh, disease and pest and help your garden to be the best that it can be. Okay, so let's talk about recognizing the symptoms. Uh, a good gardener is going to recognize the plant symptoms. We need to recognize them quickly so we can take preventative steps to control them. The longer we wait, the worse the plant's going to get, and the longer it's going to take to get the treatments that we need to get them plants over the disease or to get rid of the pest. So disease plants are not going to grow normally. We usually have some of the same symptoms we have when our nutrient supply is not up to par, and that's stunted or wilted leaves, or spots on the leaves, stems, or fruits. You can have decayed fruits or decayed areas on the stems, distorted leaves, rapid death of leaves. You can have discoloration on the leaves and the fruit. If the disease is caused by bacteria or fungus, the foliage symptoms will normally develop first on the older leaves. So, you know, your younger leaves are not going to have those symptoms as fast or as quickly as the older leaves. If it's caused by a virus, then the symptoms are going to develop on the younger leaves. So this is one way you can tell between a bacteria or fungus or a virus. Okay, so let's talk about the causes of plant diseases. We know about the organisms, but there's four main groups that cause our problems in our gardens, and they are viruses, bacteria, fungi, and nematodes. First, we're going to talk about viruses. They're the very simple forms of life. Most often, we spread the disease or the virus with our hands, during normal gardening practices, or they can be spread by insects. Okay, well, let's talk about bacteria. Another small particle, but they're a little larger in reality to the virus particles, but they're both still too small to see with the naked eye. We must have a microscope to see these. Bacterial cells normally move on water film on the leaf surface or the water surrounding the plant's roots or even soil particles. And so when we have a rain and the water splashes, or when we're watering overhead and the water splashes, this can also increase the spread of bacteria. All right, next is the fungi. There's fungal spores, and they're even larger than bacteria cells. So, but we still can't see them without a microscope. Uh, Really, all they are is just a small, like plant that attaches itself to the host plant, and most plant diseases caused by fungi are most severe when the temperatures are moderate and when water is retained on the leaves or fruit for an extended period. So when we have cool, wet weather, that's when we see the most activity on our funguses. Uh, they can be spread by wind, splashing rain, even equipment. Nematodes, they're just a small worm-like animal that lives in the soil. They feed mostly on our plant roots, and they can cause them to be stunted. So the most damaging nematode in the home garden is the root knot. It causes galls or knots on any host plant like tomatoes, cucumbers, squash, beans, and many other vegetables. So what are some signs of plant diseases? How do they show themselves to us? They attack all parts of the plant. They can develop from the time the seed is placed in the soil until the vegetable is eaten or at harvest. So identify disease symptoms quickly so you can implement control practices so you don't lose or decrease your amount of harvest. Okay, so when do these diseases occur? Well, most plant diseases are worst when we have light rain showers, heavy dews, and mild temperatures. When we get a hard rain, as I said before, the splashing water can spread the viruses and the bacteria. But fungi, they like it cool and wet. So we just need to, during these particular times, when it's cool and wet, we have light or heavy rain showers, when we have heavy dews in the morning, and when our temperatures are mild or cooler than normal, we need to watch closely for any sign of disease. So how do we prevent diseases in the garden? Well, the number one thing is to keep your plants strong. And we do that through fertilizing properly, watering properly, and we keep our plants healthy by recognizing diseases and getting on top of them quickly. When you irrigate the garden, it's best to run the water down the rows, and that's why I like raise the row gardening. Uh, Trickle irrigation is another way, and we'll talk about those when I do the water in the garden presentation. But I really don't recommend overhead watering. When you set a sprinkler out there and just or have one that's rigged up to where it waters above the plants, it only encourages more disease, especially fungus. If you've got to do that, and that's the only way you have to water, then be sure to do it before 10 a.m. Uh, and that way the plant has plenty of time to dry out. The worst thing you can do is water it in the evening. And I know it's tempting when you get home from work and you want to get out in the garden, whatever, and it's a little dry, and you think, man, I need to water my garden. But resist. Don't do it because it'll invite fungus because that water won't dry off by the time the night gets there or the dark, and you'll just be encouraging more disease. Avoid planting vegetable varieties in areas where the same vegetable from the same plant family have been planted in the past 2 years. So I'll do another series on companion gardening and crop rotation. Plants of the same family include, the tomatoes, eggplants, potatoes, squash, cucumber, melons and pumpkins, cabbage, broccoli, and cauliflower, mustard, turnips, and collards. It is best if you can plant on a raised bed, so this allows the excess water to move away from the root area, and that'll help prevent a lot of your root diseases like root knot. Uh, when it's possible, train the vegetables to grow upright on a cage or trellis, and that way it keeps them off the ground. The less we can contact the ground, the better our fruits are going to do, and our vegetables are going to do, in preventing rots and blossom end rot, in tomatoes and whatnot. So another thing you can do is plant disease-resistant varieties, wherever you can find them, and we have a list of those that we've put out through our research-based programs. So we can get that for you. Uh, resistant varieties, they'll help reduce or eliminate need for crop care products. So it's a good idea. When we're talking about viruses, bacteria, and fungi, we're probably going to have to use some crop care products to control these plant diseases. Use products with caution. Be safe. Read and follow the product label. It's on there for a reason. It's not there so you can just tear it off. You have to know how much to put out, and it gives you all the instructions on there. Some of these copper-containing products and sulfur-containing products are considered to be organic based. So if you want to go that route, then that's great. But I'll just warn you, they're probably not the most effective. So Just check the label, do a little research and find out what's going to be the most effective. And before using any crop care product, make sure the vegetables that you're going to spray are listed on the label. Okay, let's talk about these little small worm-like creatures that's in our soil called nematodes. We want to control these little buggers by using a combination of practices. One is to reduce the nematode population to numbers that don't damage our plant. So gardeners using one or more of these practices can reduce the number of nematodes in the soil. The first one, and most important I think, is plant nematode resistant varieties of vegetables. Do crop rotation. If you've had trouble in the past and you can't figure it out, you've treated for diseases and pests or viruses, bacteria and fungi and pests, and it still is going on, you may have a nematode problem. So rotate your crops and put plants that are there that are not nematode host. So during the summer, after the plants have been removed, till the soil to remove soil moisture. Take all the moisture out of it. They can't live without moisture in there. Cover the soil with a clear plastic. Leave it in place about 6 to 8 weeks during the hottest part of the year. That's usually June, July, August, or September sometimes. Another thing you can do is plant elbon rye during the fall and early winter. But you're not going to completely eliminate the nematodes. You're just going to try to control them where they don't damage your plants any more than we can help. So this is going to mean that each year you're going to need to take steps to control the nematodes. There's no crop care products or chemicals that we can use to control nematodes in the home garden. So this solarizing method of placing the clear plastic over the soil and leaving for 6 to 8 weeks during the hottest part of the year is probably your best bet. Pest control. Let's talk about that. There's a lot of different kinds of insects that feed on the garden plants. And I'm sure you can name 10 of them just right off the top of your head. So an insect damages our plants usually two ways. They'll chew holes in the leaves, the stems, the roots of the fruit, or that old mockingbird will stick his beak in there and suck out the juices on our good ripe tomatoes. I tell you what, I had tomatoes one year that was just beautiful. And I'd say I need to pick those tomorrow, and I'd go out there and every one of them have a big old hole eat out of them from a danged old mockingbird. Don't get me wrong, I like birds, but I really don't like mockingbirds. But I know that's our state bird, so there's nothing I can do about it. Just have to put up with it. Insects attack garden plants all year. If the plant's growing, you have a chance of insects attacking your plants. Some insects are going to feed on the sprouting seeds, some on the young seedlings, others are going to feed on the more mature plants or the fruit when it starts developing. Here's some of the most common ones, and these are sucking insects. We have the aphids. Those are the little tiny ones that you just barely can see. Unlike viruses and fungi and bacteria, you can see these aphids. They're just real small, and they're usually on the back of the leaf. So check the back of your leaves and look and see if you have any of those little aphids. Stink bugs is another one. And of course, the old grasshopper. We normally always have those, so watch out for those. Squash bugs, white flies. These are all sucking insects. They suck juices from the leaves, stems, and fruits of our plants. Okay, well, let's talk about the chewing insects. Of course, grasshoppers is at the top of the list. They know grasshoppers, they'll wipe out an entire garden if you don't treat for them. I know you all know that, but I hate to see them coming because I know I'm going to put out a lot of 7 dust or spray with liquid 7 or malathion. So watch out for the old grasshopper. He's our one of our biggest enemies to our gardens. We also have lots of beetles, potato beetles and flea beetles, two common ones, and the cucumber beetle, of course, squash beetles. We have army worms, several different kinds of those, several different kinds of cutworms, uh, several different kinds of loopers. But the cabbage loopers, we're all familiar with that one, most of us. And we have lots of earworms that affect our corn. So these insects, they do a lot of damage to our leaves if not controlled, and they can cause the death of a plant if you don't control them. Okay, well, let's talk about the good bugs, or the ones that are beneficial to our gardens. I'm sure when you're out, if you've been out in the garden, or if this is your first time planting a garden, you'll become familiar with the praying mantis, the ladybugs, the green lacewings, and the dragonflies, and of course all the bees and the wasps that help pollinate our garden for us. You'll become familiar with those. I'll tell you one of the best, uh, not really a bug, but a worm that we have and that you need to incorporate in your garden is earthworms. Well, I'll tell you, they do a lot of good. I had a garden one time when I first got married back in 1984, and we moved into a house, and behind the house, the man had an earthworm bed, big old earthworm beds back there. And I tilled it up, got it in shape, put a garden there, and I'll tell you what, it's the best garden that I ever had to this day. And it was just all those earthworm castings. You can do the same thing by introducing earthworms, and you probably have some there already, but you can introduce more, and they'll sure benefit you. All right, well, let's talk about the bad boys. Of course, the aphids, the little aphids that on the back of the leaf. Watch for them. We have the bill bugs and the cucumber beetles, all the different beetles, fungus gnats, earwigs, and there are some lace bugs that are not beneficial. So you just have to know the difference between them. The mealybug, the chafers, the spider mites, the thrips, the white grubs, all those are bad. So we need to make sure that we treat for those and take care of business so they don't do any damage to our plants. Okay, I put this IPM chart. What IPM is, Integrated Pest Management. And we can use beneficial insects to control the harmful insects. Just look at the ladybug. She can control spider mites, aphids, thrips, white flies, and what's that other one there? Scales. So effective control is the green, partially effective control is the blue, and we'll eat anything it can find is the red. So look at the praying mantis. He'll eat anything. So praying mantises are good. All right, so we got to recognize our insect problems. So what do we look for? Anything that doesn't look normal, right? So here's some symptoms of insect problems. Some of them are the same symptoms when we have problems with funguses, viruses, or bacteria. So the plants are stunted, they don't grow properly. Maybe they have deformed or damaged leaves. Maybe they look yellow or light in color, pale green. Maybe they're wilted and droopy. These are all signs, but the best sign is the old eye. Go out there, and most all of these bad bugs that we have, you can see with the naked eye. So do a little digging around on the leaves and the stems and check them out, and you'll find them. A lot of times, during the heat of the day, if you're checking, which is a bad time to check, but if you do check the heat of the day, most of those insects, good or bad, are going to be down close to the soil, under some debris or right next to the plant stem coming out of the ground where it's shaded. They don't like the heat any better than we do. So just do some checking. Just look. All right, so let's talk about controlling these insects. If you can control them without pesticides, uh, chemicals, I think it's best. I mean, a lot of these chemicals, especially ladybugs, if you use chemicals to control it that are not organic, then it's probably going to kill your ladybugs. And it could possibly kill your praying mantis and all the beneficial insects. So I think the best method is to go organic. Uh, so here's some that you can, cultural methods you can use. Keep weeds and grass put out of the garden. Keep it clean. Keep the area around the garden mowed and keep it clean. Plant varieties that grow well in your area. Apply the correct amount of fertilizer and water when needed. And don't overwater. And I preach this over and over. Most of our problems is caused by overwatering in the garden and the lawn. So don't overwater. And that'll be on the PowerPoint series, Garden Wise series, under Water in the Garden. When you picked all the fruit, destroy the old plants by removing them or plowing them under. Me, I personally just rather pull them all up, pile them in a big old pile out there in the middle of the garden and burn them. That's the best way to get rid of them, and the best way to get rid of any diseases or insect eggs that are laying on the plant. So just pile them out there and burn them. Be sure there's no burn ban in your county when you do that. Could be in the middle of the summer, so that may have an effect on your decision to burn those plants. But be sure and follow the burn ban rules. You can wash off some of the insects like aphids, spiders with a water hose. You can hand pick some of the insect from egg masses off the plant to prevent damage. So there's lots of ways to culturally control the insects without using chemicals. But if you've got a heavy infestation and they're just eating them up and they're going to ruin them, then get some chemicals, get some Sevin dust. That's the safest product that we have you can use. It's safe for your kids, your pets. I mean, we got to use precautions. I'm not saying you can spray them with it. I'm just saying it's the safest we have. Liquid Sevin or Sevin carbaryl to use in our gardens and our lawns and around the house. So malathion is a pretty safe product, although it stinks to high heaven. So that may discourage you from using that product. All right. If we have to use chemical control, like I said, when large numbers build up in the garden, you got to do something. So dust or sprays, like I talked about, is good control. I kind of got ahead of myself, but before you buy the pesticide, read on the label, read on there what it's recommended to kill, what pests it'll get rid of, and the plants that you want to treat. How much you should use. The information's on there, like I said, for a reason. So be sure and use it. All insecticides are poisonous. Even Sevin's poisonous, or it wouldn't kill the insects. But it is the safest around children and pets. And I've used it all my life. So I'm almost 60 years old and used Sevin my entire life. That's what we used. But just, handle, if you use any kind of insecticide, just handle it with care and keep it away from children and pets, and be diligent about that. All right, so here's some insecticides that you can use around the home vegetable gardens. Here's some conventional insecticides. That's sulfur, which is considered an organic, so it's not going to hurt anything. The imidacloprid, you can use that, but it's a little rough on our bee population, so I don't recommend that one. That's why it's in red, but you can use it. Cyfluthrin is a good one, and of course the old standbys that's been around for years and years, malathion and Sevin. And you can get Sevin in liquid, or you can get it in dust form. So some of the organic insecticides, one that I really like a lot is called neem oil. Gosh, neem oil can be used for so many things. Disease, insects, mites. It can even be used as dormant oil in fruit trees during the wintertime. Another one is an insecticidal soap. That works pretty well. Then we have some that's good bacteria like BT, Bacillus thuringiensis. Then you can use some of the different juice extracts like garlic, peppermint, peppermint oil, chili juice. There's all kinds of juice extracts you can use. Some work, some don't. It just depends on the bug and the time of year and the weather pattern. Pyrethrins are pretty safe. Then there's the old diatomaceous earth, DE, which works really good on scaled insects because they rub, it gets under their wings and between their body parts and rubs and just rubs them raw and eventually kills them. So spinosad is another one of those bacterial or good bacteria that we can use. And then there's grub away for nematodes. I mentioned the oil sprays in the last slide, but there's a lot more. There's cedar, lavender, eucalyptus, pennyroyal, citronella, rosemary, peppermint, soybean, lots of different kind of oil and oil extracts that we can use. And here's the formula for making those. A basic oil spray insecticide. Just mix 1 cup of vegetable oil with a tablespoon of soap and cover it up or put a lid on it and shake it thoroughly. And then when you're ready to apply, add 2 teaspoons of oil spray mix with 1 quart of water. Shake thoroughly and spray directly on the surface of the plants that's affected by the little pest, the little bad bugs. And what it does, it coats the bodies of the insects and really it suffocates them. So it blocks the pores through which they breathe air. So yes, they do breathe. All right, another one's horticultural oil. It can be used as an insecticide, fungicide, or miticide. And neem oil, I just gave an example of that in the last slide. Really good product, I believe. Okay, well, here are some good resources for disease and insect control when you're battling them in your garden. And if you have any questions, please let us know. And we look forward to seeing you again the next time on Garden Wise.